New Day with Dr. Tammy Bradshaw Scott, a program dedicated to addressing current issues and offering solutions and hope for each new day. Dr. Tammy is a registered psychologist and licensed marriage and family therapist with degrees in clinical psychology. And now, here is your host for A New Day, Dr. Tammy.
As a parent and a therapist, I believe that we need to help direct our children in a healthy direction throughout their life. More than ever, our children are at risk for dangerous pitfalls, such as getting involved in gangs, drugs, alcohol, social media issues, and suicide. Parents have the greatest influence on their children's lives, but often they do not know what's going on with their children at school. So to help us better understand what children are facing at school, please join me in welcoming our guests today, Richard Tubbs and Nathan Smith. Well, thank you both for joining us today. This is such an important topic of what we will be discussing today, which has to do with our children and them being at school. They spend how many hours a week at school? You know, on average 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. They have some vacations, but they're in your classrooms and on the playgrounds and on the school facility, you know, wherever that might be, for most of the week. So I really want to help parents today understand, you know, what we can do to help our children when they are away at school and some of the different issues that they face that can become very dangerous in the years to come. But first, can we find out who you are and what you do? And we'll start with you, Richie.
Well, thanks for having me here. It's a wonderful pleasure to be here and to be able to, I guess, empower the parents through our time together. I've actually been part of the education field for 9 years as a teacher and then 13 years as an administrator, parent myself as well. And so I really consider it, it's just a privilege and an honor to be able to work with students and to be able to partner with the parents and helping them bring out the best in their child.
Okay. What grade levels have you taught?
All the way from kindergarten up to 8th grade.
No kidding. Okay.
So a very wide range.
Fantastic. And subjects?
Well, when you're with kindergartners, you're working on a lot of those developmental skills, and then all the way up into the middle school years. I also taught science and social studies and English, keyboarding, when that was part of my program as well. And so then at the elementary level, you're doing all of the major subjects.
Fantastic. Okay. And so what do you do now?
So now as an elementary principal for the last 11 years at Hope Elementary, I get to still, what I say, I teach students to make great choices, work with the parents, and just trying to build an environment and a culture that's going to be the best place for their students so they can really provide a productive and purposeful life.
Okay. Excellent. Well, thank you. That's awesome. How about you, Nathan? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I teach in the classroom, and I've been teaching for 15 years. I have taught English.
15 years.
15
okay.
years now, yes. English, speech, theater, and I have taught some Spanish and social studies along the way as well. 7th grade, then 9th through 12th, and the various stuff I've taught.
Oh, my.
Again, for 15 years at the same school where I graduated from.
No kidding.
Yeah,
How was that for you?
At first it was a little strange teaching alongside some of the teachers I had, but it's just become like a second home.
Wonderful. Now, what are you currently doing?
Well, I have freshman English as my main subject, and then I teach a semester elective of speech and a year-long elective of theater. Okay. And so I work with the theater productions at our school, directing a play in the fall and then assistant directing a musical in the spring.
Oh, that's terrific. That is absolutely terrific. Do you have a favorite grade that you've taught, or should I even ask that?
I wouldn't say it's a grade, it's more of a subject. I enjoy British literature.
Okay. Oh, do you?
Yes, I do.
Oh, my. Okay.
And
That's-
I've worn
that's
my tie
impressive.
today to
I
show my
love-
love of literature with English
Love the tie.
writers of all sorts.
Oh, that's great. So, subject is
English
literature-
mainly.
English, okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. What about you, Richie? Do you have a favorite or preferred grade level or subject?
Well, being at the elementary level right now, and I do have to say my time at middle school was fabulous, very rewarding, and being at the elementary level, each level of student has its own unique opportunities. And so it's really difficult for me to choose just one. I like having fun with our kindergarten, first grade students. We'll have media center activities and, just to see that enthusiasm, the love of learning. You ask someone, hey, who loves to draw? And every hand goes up, I love to draw. And then your upper grade levels, you can have some deeper conversations with them, and they still love to have fun. So I think it's just great to be able to instill the joy of learning and that, discovery process. So it's very difficult to choose just one. I absolutely, genuinely love them all.
Oh, that is great, because you can choose different aspects of those grades and subjects that you can really help the kids. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
When we talk about the kids at the different grade levels, now obviously when they're younger, kindergarten, first grade, these younger years, we're not so concerned about the influence of gangs, drugs, things like that. But what are some of the concerns that you all see at some of the younger ages that parents, it would be very helpful for parents to know about and how to help their children?
I think a big thing for students is probably how we're seeing social media creep in. You wouldn't necessarily think of that hitting the younger ages, but it's creeping in.
What does that look like?
Well, it used to be at the middle school when cell phones started coming into place, and just trying to make sure they weren't disruptions and that they were using it appropriately. But now younger and younger ages are coming in with their own personal devices.
Such as?
Well, a tablet, even a cell phone.
Oh.
And so
kindergartners, like running around
not quite
now?
kindergarten
Not yet?
but usually about third grade, and that's when we start to see it. And so we're having to take
third grade.
Kidding.
So
we're-
about how old is that?
So well, you're looking at probably your
8?
9-year-olds, so
Okay.
somewhere around there.
Pretty
So it's very
young.
common for our fifth graders as well. And I understand the need for parents that want to have that communication,
Yes.
just kind of help with some scheduling.
Of
Third
course.
grade's kind of young, so oftentimes it becomes a toy for them. And so it's really helping them learn how to use devices appropriately.
Okay.
And so wanting to make sure that they're using for its intended purpose and not
Okay.
for something that perhaps would steer them in a negative way.
Yes, and distraction, I imagine.
Definitely a distraction. Yeah.
Yes. So is that something that you have to work with the parents on to help them understand, to support that at home? That, hey, your child is, bringing the phone, that's great, but, for the parent to support them keeping it put away?
Yes.
Is that a conversation you have to have?
Definitely, and it's a partnership, and there's two
Yeah.
parts to it, because you're working with the student during the school day and helping them manage that responsibly, and then helping the parents as well.
Yeah.
Particularly at home, when we see where it can become a distraction, maybe it's that preferred, I want to go to that device and not take care of homework, and so we have to help the parents be able to navigate that at home. Some of the things very practically we try to make sure that they do is the device should not go into a student's room.
Yes.
That child can use the device perhaps in an open area where the parent's going to be, and that helps them be able to regulate and monitor
That's excellent.
as well. So that's
I wish more
very
parents,
skill.
yes, would listen to that, because that's absolutely right. So do you find that the parents are responsive to that recommendation?
Oftentimes they are. They start
Okay.
to think, oh, yeah, that probably explains as that, it's a preferred device for them.
Yes.
And so when they take it out of the room, then they're able to monitor that, but then also be able to make sure that we're getting our priorities done.
Yes.
And so, they've been very receptive. They often don't think, because they grew up with the TV in their own room, perhaps. And so we also see where that can be a negative thing as well. So wanting to
Yes.
bring those devices into the community environment. So I think that's a healthier way
Yes.
to manage
Yes.
devices.
And at the middle school and high school level?
Well, when you've got a lot of different things going on with that one, and when we talk about devices, the issue of communication during school becomes a problem. So that can be things from kids taking pictures of assignments and tests, passing along to someone else, cheating going on,
Okay.
but also the social interaction in terms of, we can get to bullying and those kinds of things. We deal with some students who have made some bad choices in terms of sexting or sending other photographs like that.
Right.
Things that we want to watch out for. I recall a time that on a field trip, some kids had started using a conversation app called Kik, which is anonymous and geographically based. So while they're on the bus, they could say whatever they wanted, and it led to some really horrible things being said. And so we had to be monitoring even more carefully how kids are connecting during the school day through school events that may not necessarily be on campus.
Right. Now, see, I've never heard of that. And how do you, I mean, with these new apps and all these different, how do you find out about that as a teacher?
Some of that is just listening as the kids are talking
Okay.
and hearing what they say and then going and looking up some of that. Other times it's making sure to stay current and reading the journals that are going out, not just on educational things, how to teach certain lessons, but how to deal with the students at each age level. What is it that they're really looking into and how are they changing that?
Right. Right. Okay. So do you inform the parents, for instance, when you had this situation?
Yes,
Yeah,
our
that
principal
happens.
took that one, and he
Okay.
he had sent home an email to all of the parents of the students involved in that group saying that this had happened, and this was going to be the consequence for that. And as it was an anonymous thing, that there wasn't any one person that they could take out, nor was anybody willing to volunteer that they were the ones involved in that. So they had given a blanket discipline to the group, and from
Because there was no way to really tell where.
right, not without getting into some serious, computer issues.
Sure.
So, from then on out, it was extending the cell phone policy of it's not going to be out in the classroom to it's not going to be out
Go
during
on
field
field
trips
trips.
or
Yes.
on buses going to sports events.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about this citizenship. What is it called?
Yeah, digital citizenship.
Okay, there it is.
Well, just like we want students to be productive and responsible citizens in our world here, in the digital world, online, whether through emails or they're texting or any of the apps that they're using, we want them to make sure that they are using it responsibly, being polite, courteous, and so
Like
it's very
they would
important.
be in a room full of people, right?
Absolutely, so
Okay.
important.
Okay.
Well, my daughter Hannah, she's 6 years old and is in the first grade, and in her computer sessions that they have weekly, they're doing some of this digital citizenship as well, and it's starting with some very basic things like asking permission to use the devices or asking if they can go on certain websites.
Oh, wonderful. So it's like a training and teaching our kids from the time they're very young and going up from there. Okay, that's wonderful. And is it across the different schools? Private, public school?
Yes, definitely. And so, we start in kindergarten with a similar model, and then you just build on those at each of the grade levels. And as part of our federal funding, we have to incorporate that.
Okay.
And so it's kind of something that's evolved as the digital world has continued to evolve. And so we just want to make sure that we're taking care of our students and they're acting responsibly. So, it's definitely a required part for what we do.
That is fantastic. Very encouraging to hear that, because I know that in this digital world that we live in and with all the social, gadgets that we have, if you will, tablets, phones, computers, there's a lot to be concerned about, a lot of dangerous things that can happen with our kids, but also the issue of bullying. So I want to talk about that a little bit, because as a therapist, I know that I have had clients that have been really injured from the bullying, cyberbullying. Can you speak to that in terms of what you all are seeing at your schools and how you're managing this?
Yeah, typically, at least in my experience, it's our upper grades that where it starts, and it might start with someone taking a picture, and then they, with an app, alter the picture some way, and they think it's funny, and but they don't think about how their actions have consequences for that person who was the victim in this case and didn't give their permission for you to alter my photo, and then it gets shared almost instantly with other people by just texting or emailing that photo.
Yes.
And so, yeah, it definitely is something that we have to constantly monitor. And the great thing is the parents, as soon as they hear about it, they contact the school immediately, because it oftentimes, it might start at home, but then it's going to filter down, and they bring it into the school and then the classroom, and that becomes a distraction for the students as well. So
Yes.
it is definitely a growing problem, and it's a huge concern for us. We just want to keep them safe.
Yes. What age level would you say that this usually starts around, where we need to be concerned?
For our school site, you're as young as 10 years old.
As young as 10. So
Yeah.
what is that?
Yeah, so
Fourth
you're looking,
grade,
yeah, you're
fifth
looking
grade?
fourth, fifth grade.
Goodness, that's young.
Yeah.
But because they're becoming more savvy, right? They know how to operate and...
I was going to add to that it'll start out in that area, but it'll seriously escalate in the 6th, 7th grade levels.
Okay.
For us, that's what we'll end up seeing there. And then in high school, they become so tech savvy that they're finding different ways of doing this, and it becomes very hard to see at that level at times.
Okay. So give us an example, if you will.
Well, sometimes it starts with little things like blocking someone through a different app, or
okay.
not following them when they used to follow them on
Unfriending
Instagram.
them.
Right, that
I know
kind of stuff.
Facebook.
So it's these sort of little snubs at first,
Okay,
but then it'll
okay.
become attacks later on. You're sending texts or direct messages, things that go right at the person. But then it'll become more of what we think of the mean girl type of bullying, where it's being sent to all the friends to shame them. And so they become ostracized, left out of friend groups, that kind of stuff, because of what people have said or done on social media or through other means.
Okay. And that has a very far-reaching effect, correct?
Correct.
Because if it's happening, what we used to know as locker room meanness with the boys or the girls, being mean, excluding from a circle of friends at lunch, now you're looking at it on a grander scale, which is through the social media that has far-reaching. Is that right?
Well, I have a couple of girls this year, actually, who have had some of that in the past, where they have lost friends because of the different, I don't know what you would think of them, just the social interactions of other people on these, Snapchat, Instagram, all that kind of stuff. And so they found themselves left out of groups that they had been a part of before. And there was never any
Which is devastating.
Right, there was never any direct communication. It was just through the media stuff.
Yes.
And then later on, some of it came back and was direct, but they were already outside the group by that point.
Of course.
And as a teacher, it's a thing that you don't see at first. What you see is the effects of afterwards. And so one of those things that I had learned in that situation was to raise it in the consciousness of the teachers, just mentioning something, from a parent. They've noticed something, send it back to us so we can do something as well.
Working as a team.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah, to be most successful.
And if I could just interject,
Yes.
something that the parents can do that we always encourage is to make sure you have access to your students' accounts.
Yes.
So they have to ask permission to sign up and make sure that the parents have all of those passwords and the usernames. And I think that's a very important part of the process as well, because you want
Critically.
the parents to be able to continue to help raise up the child in that digital world as they continue to go through all those different
Yes.
apps. So
Responsibly and safely,
yes,
correct?
yes.
When I think about this in terms of developmentally, and this is sort of my problem as a therapist and a clinician, which is it seems that the kids today have all of this at their fingertips. So they've got this social media, they've got all these, the capacity to have the effects, like you said, the far-reaching effects, and be able to reach all these people and kids in a social media, way. But developmentally, I don't believe there really should be given so much of that responsibility, and that's why I think that the parents absolutely need to be on board and have all their passwords and be involved. The kids who take photos, and we've seen a lot of this, that's actually there have been young people who have taken their life over this, where there was a selfie taking, sex texting, whatever, got out, and it devastated that young person. Well, when a young person is behaving this way, we know that they're not always thinking about the consequences, like you mentioned a moment ago. You know, their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until they're in their mid-20s. And so that's the executive functioning, of course, of the brain that says, this is the cause and effect, this is what's going to, thinking down the road in terms of how is this going to affect you? How is this going to affect your friendships, you know, your later school, career, what have you? And so that's where I think that here we've given them something that is so powerful. You know, it really is to have such effects, and yet they're not at that capacity to be able to handle that without such guidelines, you know, from the parents. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, well, those guidelines are very important. I think you're right on when you say that the students don't really think through the consequences, right. And they also don't think about how lasting it is.
Yes.
And there's a great resource. John Moffat works with internet security to educate parents, and he holds these assemblies for students as well. And he educates the students and the parents about that nothing's really private. So you might put your account, it's private, and this is private. And he'll actually go through and show people how it's not as private as you think.
Yes.
And so that presents another problem where who else is looking at their account?
Yes.
That's not part of their group. And so it's out there for anyone to see.
I was mortified to find that out, you know, because when I realized that my computer that has a camera, that when that's on, you know, who knows, even though I don't use it, I was mortified. Well, I'm shutting that thing down. But you're absolutely right. So, you know, on the level of bullying, and I know that we've brought in all sorts of programs to help reduce this. Have you all seen a shift and improvement with regards to bullying? And, you know, what do parents need to be aware of today? Because I think that's one of the issues that has me as a therapist great concern, because I see the kids, as you said, after the damage has been done. But where are we at with that in the schools?
You know, it's kind of hard to say, for me at least, as a teacher in the classroom. I still see evidence of that happening in different ways. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's direct, sometimes it's indirect. And, you know, I'm not sure what would cause each individual to do that. You know, often the desire to make themselves want to feel better, and until they come to grips with perhaps their own self-worth, then they wouldn't take it out on other people. And so it may be that as long as these kids are struggling with that, there's going to be some of that. But in, you know, making it easy for them to do it, I think you know, again, as a teacher, working with parents, trying to look for the signs that kids are some way involved in this, and starting with good boundaries as a good citizen and as a good digital citizen from a very young age, so that it's just part of who they are. This is what I do, this is what I don't do, and they don't stop to think, oh, I could do this, but instead, no, this is just what I do.
Yes. And what I hear you saying in there also is that, once again, the partnering with the parent and the teacher and the school officials, you know.
Yeah, so important. And you mentioned the self-worth as being a critical component, and that's such an important emotion that we as parents have to cultivate and encourage and promote. And once students continue to build on their self-worth, then they gain confidence.
Yes.
And from that, we tend to see kinder kids as well. I know at the elementary level, I mean, we start with our kindergarten students all the way up, and we're always promoting kindness. There are 3 big movements that we participate in, and they're very simple. One, it starts with hello, it starts with a smile, and kindness matters.
Polite.
So just trying to put that at the top of the priority list is so important. And so making sure that we're also quick to intervene and help bring about the change in the behavior.
So in other words, what you're saying, that it has to start at home.
It's very important.
Kind of what I was saying in the beginning of our introduction is that for parents to be aware, and for the parents, they have the greatest impact. And they're sending their children to school, and they're with the teachers and in the classroom, but it's still on the parents. If a parent is driving down the road and giving a finger to someone who just cut him off, and the kids are watching this, then how are they going to behave when they walk into the classroom?
Important to lead by example.
Lead by
That's very
example.
important.
Yes, very good. Any final thoughts that you want to offer our viewing parents today that you feel is very important for their kids and would make a difference in their being at school?
Well, I would just throw this out that teachers, especially in the upper levels, we're dealing with 150 plus kids a day. So it'd be really good if into helping out with this partnering that we've been talking about, if they notice something,
Yes.
to get us to look for it, just to raise it a little in our consciousness. Hey, my child seems a little depressed. Have you noticed anything? And that will let us look a little better at what's going on in our classrooms and in our hallways. And so we can try and help the kids make better choices.
Communication.
Of course.
I mean, parent, can't they just send you like an email or something, make it simple to where, we all have time for that, right, as parents?
Right. Yeah, and in doing so, to do so in a good, polite manner as well,
Yes.
because I know we care. We know that you care for your kids, but I want you to know that we care as well, making
Yes.
sure that you don't attack us
You're
for
not the bad guys.
noticing. Exactly.
You're not the bad guys. You're not being mean to their kids.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we definitely care for their child, and I kind of look at it, we're the custodial parents during that school
I like
day.
that.
And it is, that's a huge responsibility for us. But that
Yes.
partnership for parents with their school and to stay so engaged. And I know there are a lot of families where they're not able to be engaged within the school day, but it's so important to be engaged with your student. So at home, talking to them about their school day and what they're working on and listening to them. Because
You mean put the cell phones down around the dinner table?
Absolutely.
And eat dinner together?
Absolutely.
And talk?
Because when they're listening to their student, they're identifying that your education is important to me, and so that helps them prioritize it. And then it also allows that parent to feel that connection
Yes.
as well. And that's just such a powerful part of being a parent.
Fantastic, fantastic.
And I think it's definitely important that the parents look at ways to help empower their students, and that's what we're doing in the schools, and so that they can develop as self-confident learners. And once you build their confidence and their self-esteem, you're really getting them to a higher level of success. So that is a very important part of our roles as parents.
Absolutely, fantastic. Thank you both. Thank you so much to those of you viewing at home and those in our live studio audience today. Thank you so much for joining us today on A New Day.
This viewer-supported program is made possible by viewers like you. Your support is invaluable and appreciated. To send a gift or for more information, please contact Dr. Tammy at the address on your screen. And thank you for joining us for A New Day.